tema terkait dengan implementasi literasi digital dan pemanfaatan teknologi untuk pembelajaran kolaboratif. Sebelumnya tentunya saya menyampaikan sapaan juga dari Bapak Dekan, Prof. Rusdi, dan juga Ibu Wakil Dekan kita, Ibu Delita, yang kebetulan berhalangan hadir pada hari ini dikarenakan ada kegiatan terkait akreditasi universitas, namun mereka benar-benar mensupport acara kita pada pagi hari ini. Maka dari itu harapannya silakan Bapak Ibu dan adik-adik mahasiswa nanti apabila ada pertanyaan dengan narasumber kita yang kebetulan lumayan jauh ya dari luar Indonesia, sangat-sangat dipersilakan untuk pertanyaan-pertanyaannya. Alright, I think we just go through the presentation from our speakers. Mungkin langsung saja ya kita persilakan kepada narasumber kita untuk menyampaikan presentasinya. You can pause whenever you are ready for me to translate. Dan we'll continue to the presentation. The Honorable to Dr. Kelly and Dr. Amber, time is yours.
Selamat pagi. So I'm Dr. Amber McLeod, and just to give you a bit of background so you know how my context is different from your context. I work in the Faculty of Education at Monash. It's a very big faculty, and all the education degrees are in the one faculty. So I know over here maybe you split up the science to different sections and so on. Ours is all together. And my area is teaching about digital technologies in education. So in Australia, we have to have digital technologies in our schools. And so we have to have digital technologies in so I think that's a little bit different between here and Australia.
Jadi baru saja Dr. Amber memperkenalkan diri ya, beliau mengajar di bidang digital teknologi karena kalau di Australia itu tepatnya di Universitas Monash itu wajib untuk melaksanakan atau mengimplementasikan teknologi digital, harus ada di pembelajaran. Nah ini mungkin hal ini bisa Bapak Ibu dan adik-adik mahasiswa komparasi ya dengan apa yang terjadi di Indonesia dan spesifiknya di Jambi.
Selamat pagi. My name is Dr. Kelly Karabot. I am also a lecturer at Monash University in the Teacher Education Program. So I teach both undergraduate and postgraduate students, and my specialty is what we call English, which is literacy, reading and writing, literature, so looking at different types of texts, and also the English language. I'm also interested in all of my research is around how digital technologies influence our understandings of reading and writing, and how we can leverage digital technology to support our literacy of our students.
Oke, jadi Dr. Kelly tadi juga bidang ilmunya masih terkait dengan teknologi digital ya Bapak Ibu ya, namun beliau memang lebih fokusnya itu ke bidang literasi dan bahasa Inggris dan bagaimana digital teknologi tadi itu mempengaruhi bacaan dan bagaimana memperluas kemampuan digital teknologi tadi untuk pembelajaran. Beliau juga di Fakultas Pendidikan juga ya di Universitas Monash sama seperti Dr. Amber.
So today we have combined our interests and we're going to talk about how you can use games, computer games, to help with teaching. So in general, I only teach about digital technologies, but at schools, the teachers have to combine digital technologies with their teaching of other subjects like science and maths and English and so on. So that's what we're going to look at today. So we'll talk about the typical ways technology is taught in a our education degrees. So this is at the university level. Then we'll have a look at the popularity of games. It's very popular here in Indonesia. And then we'll take some time to look at the pedagogy that's embedded in games. In some ways, games are the perfect teacher. And then we'll talk about some examples of using games to teach.
Oke, jadi hari ini kita bakal ngomongin tentang pemanfaatan permainan atau games Bapak Ibu dalam pembelajaran. Karena di Monash sendiri itu harus ada kombinasi pemanfaatan teknologi di bidang sains dan juga pembelajaran lainnya. Jadi ada 4 hal tadi yang akan kita bahas hari ini. Yang pertama itu adalah pemanfaatan teknologi di bidang pembelajaran. Yang kedua adalah popularitas games digunakan dalam pembelajaran, apalagi tadi Dr. Amber tahu tuh kalau misalkan games itu populer banget ya digunain ya sama anak-anak di Indonesia ya. Terus hal ketiga adalah apa sih sebenarnya pedagogik yang terkandung dalam pembelajaran yang berbasis games, dan yang keempat nanti kita bakal.
So what we would like you to do is we want to know, are you already using games? Are you thinking about using games as part of your teaching? So when we are teaching at Monash as part of our classes, we would always start with accessing prior knowledge. What is it that you bring to your understandings of this subject? So what we would like you to do is either scan the QR code or click on scan the QR code will be yes. It will take you to something that looks like, I can't see, that looks like this. What you need to do is down the bottom of the screen, there is a plus. So if you click on the plus, you can then type your answer in, and Rissa will be translating those for us.
Oke. Jadi ada QR code tadi ya. QR code tadi ditunjukin oleh Dr. Kelly. Oke, ini QR code-nya ya. Silakan Bapak Ibu boleh scan, bisa? Di-scan coba yang di ruangan. Oke, it works. Ya. Nah, then there will be questions. Ya, jadi that's the question. Jadi pertanyaannya itu adalah terkait dengan game digital apa yang sudah diimplementasikan oleh Bapak Ibu dan mahasiswa-mahasiswi dalam pembelajaran. Mungkin kalau yang menjawab mahasiswa-mahasiswi, kalian sebagai usernya gitu ya, dosennya pernah implementasiin games nggak dalam pembelajaran? Tapi kalau untuk Bapak Ibu dosen, mungkin Bapak Ibu bisa jawab apa yang pernah Bapak Ibu implementasikan terkait games dalam pembelajaran. Welcome Ibu Upi, also one of our senior lecturer in the Biology Education Study Program. And also welcome to our lecturers and also students who are just joining us through Zoom. Silakan Bapak Ibu boleh di-scan. You can scan the barcode dan answer the questions. Dijawab pertanyaannya dengan menekan simbol plus ya. The add symbol, then you can answer the questions. Mahasiswa bisa diakses? Oke, the works-nya sudah dijawab pertanyaannya. They're still, thinking about what they've learned, ya. Ayo, boleh diingat-ingat lagi nih, games apa yang pernah dilakukan dalam pembelajaran di kelasnya, mungkin di semester awal. Okay. Okay, the link is also inserted through the chat section. Ya, jadi ada ada linknya ya Bapak Ibu di kolom chat Zoom kita, bisa diklik di situ juga selain tadi scan QR code.
There are no wrong answers.
Bisa diisi Bapak Ibu, adik-adik, mahasiswa? Bisa? They're thinking so hard. Oh, you don't have to answer in English. Gak harus dengan bahasa Inggris ya, Bapak Ibu masa mahasiswi, tenang aja. Bisa pakai bahasa Indonesia juga jawabnya ya.
So quizzes is a good one. Yeah, we use that a lot too. But maybe you use other games like Pokemon Go.
Pernah nggak pakai Pokemon Go dalam pembelajaran? Not yet. Tahu Pokemon Go, tahu kan ya? Tahu, they know about Pokemon Go. Ayo ditunggu nih, we're waiting for the other answers. What digital tools ya? Apa yang digunain dalam pembelajaran? Aplikasi-aplikasi contohnya ya Bapak Ibu ya, apa tuh yang biasanya digunakan dalam pembelajaran? Dan boleh dijawab juga tuh bagaimana permainan atau games itu digunakan dalam pembelajaran.
Or maybe you use PowerPoint in your classes or Word.
Kahoot. Termasuk di ini juga Ibu, bisa di aplikasi digital juga. Bisa, atau bahkan PowerPoint juga termasuk bisa. Jadi bisa apapun, yang penting terkait digitalisasi itu bisa masuk di pertanyaan yang sebelah kiri.
GeoGebra is a very good one too.
Kalau misalkan Bapak Ibu atau masa mahasiswi belum pernah ada menggunakan terkait dengan aplikasi pada pembelajaran atau permainan dalam pembelajaran, Bapak Ibu juga bisa tuliskan aja ya, nggak pernah gitu. Atau never, nah itu bisa dijawab di kolom pertanyaan tersebut. Oke. Ini masa mahasiswa ini belum jawab nih. Sudah ya? Oke. Oke, I think silakan Bapak Ibu diisi biar kita bisa mungkin membahas dari situ dulu ya, dari menjawab pertanyaannya dulu.
So it's really interesting for us to see the kinds of technology that you're using because we have very different contexts. So there's a big push in Australia by the government, by parents, by industry, that there's more technology being used in schools. And in terms of teaching, we try not to use technology that will replace things we're already doing. We try to use technology that will improve our teaching. So for example, when you are playing games like Quizzes or Kahoot or that kind of thing, often they're anonymous, so the students don't feel shy to put the real answer. Also, the students can see what everybody else in the class is thinking. Am I doing okay or am I behind? And it's a very quick way for teachers to get feedback about a topic. At the same time, if you're using something like Google Docs, it's very collaborative. You're working together with other students. And we usually feel that students can learn a lot from each other, not just from the teacher.
Oke, jadi sebenarnya menarik ya melihat terkait dengan teknologi yang diimplementasikan di Indonesia kalau di-compare sama yang digunakan di Australia. Karena kalau di Australia itu sendiri, Bapak Ibu dan adik mahasiswa, penggunaan teknologi di kelas itu sangat di-push, sangat didorong oleh pemerintahnya. Tapi dalam konteks di mana bukan berarti teknologi itu gantiin guru, melainkan bagaimana teknologi itu mengimprove atau memperbaiki kualitas dari pembelajaran. Contohnya tadi kayak yang Dr. Amber sempat sebutin, contohnya Kahoot nih. Nah, kalau gunain Kahoot sama kuis itu kan bisa di-set anonim kan ya. Nah, jadi kalau kita nge-set anonim itu kan jadinya kita sebagai mahasiswa atau peserta didik nggak malu gitu kan ngasih jawabannya ya. Nah, jadi kita bisa ngamatin tuh dari situ gimana nih kemampuan kita sebagai peserta didik, dan dari sisi guru atau dosen pun bisa ngelihat keseluruhan jawaban mahasiswa karena kan emang anonim, jadi emang menjawab apa adanya. Quizzes juga seperti itu. Contohnya juga penggunaan lain di Google Docs. Kalau Google Docs itu kan mendukung pembelajaran kolaboratif ya. Semua orang bisa kontribusi kan di Google Docs dengan link. Nah, pemanfaatan semacam ini sih yang juga diimplementasiin di pendidikan di Australia.
So it doesn't matter in our university if you are teaching chemistry or mathematics, both teaching literacy, we are needing to model to students how to use digital technology to support learning. And so it's embedded across our entire degree, regardless of the subject. But what Amber's going to talk about is more specifically a digital technology.
Oke, jadi tadi di-share sama Dr. Kelly ya bahwa kalau dosen-dosen di Universitas Monash di Australia itu sebenarnya sangat-sangat yang mereka lakukan itu terkait dengan gimana gunain teknologi untuk kelas tiap hari, dalam pembelajaran tiap hari. Jadi sebenarnya nggak masalah latar ilmu, disiplin ilmunya mau itu sains ataupun latar ilmu lainnya. Namun gimana dosen itu harus memberikan contoh kepada para mahasiswanya bagaimana menggunakan teknologi digital pada pembelajaran setiap hari. Nah, nanti akan dibahas oleh Dr. Amber terkait dengan konteks pada subjek teknologi digital.
Teacher education. So how can we help our teachers use technology? Oh, sorry. So the orange and yellow diagram on there is about how we can teach teachers about using technology. And the orange circle in the middle emphasizes the importance of role models. The teacher has to be the role model. With technology, things always go wrong. As the teacher educator, you have to model that. Oh no, this didn't work. What are we going to do? You have to show that it's okay to fail, to get it wrong, to make mistakes. Because with technology, you always make mistakes. Nobody knows everything about technology. So role modeling and showing that I don't have to be an expert is very important. Reflection is also really important. We used this today. Was it actually worthwhile? I'm trying to teach maths. Did it actually teach maths, or were the students too distracted by the technology? Other things you think about, for example, authentic experiences. That one is one we really focus on as well.
Oke, jadi seperti Bapak Ibu lihat ya di sebelah kanan itu ada sebuah bentuk rangka itu yang berwarna merah bisa kita lihat terkait dengan mempersiapkan calon guru untuk penggunaan teknologi. Nah, lalu pada warna yang lebih oranye itu ada beberapa elemen yang mengitarinya. Yang pertama bagaimana guru itu harus menjadi role model, artinya mengajarkan kepada siswanya untuk penggunaan teknologi, dan juga ada elemen refleksi di sana, di mana setelah adanya pemanfaatan teknologi itu tentunya ada hal-hal yang bisa kita revisi kembali, dan juga salah satunya ada pengalaman otentik yang terlibat di dalam model gambar yang dipresentasikan di sebelah kanan tersebut dari 6 elemen yang ditampilkan.
So I've got their discussion, playtime, planning and reflecting. When I'm planning my lessons, which as Kelly said are in technology, I always make sure I include this in there. But I think it doesn't matter what subject you're teaching, you still need to do this. So let's go to the first one. So let me give you some examples. I usually in my technologies classes have discussions with the students about their attitude towards technology. Because we imagine that young people know everything about technology, but we know from lots of studies that that's not true. Maybe they know a lot about social media, but they don't know a lot about Excel spreadsheets. So we have to, as teachers, get past that idea that, oh, they're young, they can do it. I don't have to explicitly teach them. Other attitudes we might have, or that students might have as, it's hard. Oh, technology is so hard, I can't do it. So often I will give students very fun, simple things to do at the beginning, and I teach it very slowly and explicitly. And then they say, oh, that was easy. Another one that we have in Australia, I don't know if you have it here, is that technology is for boys. Girls don't do technology. So that's a big issue we have to cope with in Australia. Girls sometimes don't want to look too nerdy, too geeky. Another attitude that we often see or we have to look at is it good for learning or is it not good for learning? So if you are older like me, you didn't use technology when you were at school. So usually we teach the same way we were taught. So for a lot of people, a lot of teachers will say, I didn't use technology when I was at school, so why should I use it now? And then on the flip side, some people think, oh, every time I add technology, it will improve learning. But that's not true at all. And also we have time to discuss the experiences students have had before school. So this is an example of what I might ask. So do you agree that ChatGPT should be banned in schools? So before class, everybody answers class. And then in class, we have a discussion about why they answered the way they did. And we often have very good discussions and people are quite surprised by their other students' comments.
Berfokus membicarakan tentang konteks pembelajaran terkait dengan teknologi. Jadi ada beberapa hal yang Dr. Amber implementasiin dalam pengajaran beliau di universitas dan fakultas beliau. Yang pertama diantaranya itu ada sesi diskusi, dan yang kedua yang beliau share itu pastinya beliau tuh merencanakan penggunaan teknologi dalam pembelajaran beliau. Nah contohnya nih sesi diskusi yang beliau laksanain itu terkait dengan bagaimana sikap peserta didik dalam pemanfaatan teknologi. Contohnya nih, kalau kita kan dari perspektif pengajar ya, kita kan kadang merasa anak-anak generasi Z atau anak-anak muda ini udah tahu semua tentang teknologi. Padahal belum tentu juga Bapak Ibu kalau menurut Dr. Amber. Karena bisa jadi nih yang diketahui oleh anak-anak muda ini adalah terkait dengan media sosial contohnya. Jadi kalau medsos, Facebook, TikTok tahu, tapi belum tentu mereka tahu tentang spreadsheets, tentang Kahoot, belum tentu mereka tahu juga. Terus Dr. Amber juga pernah memiliki pengalaman terkait dengan proses diskusi yang beliau lakukan di kelas. Ada kesulitan yang dihadapi oleh peserta didik. Maka dari itu bagaimana beliau memberikan solusi, yaitu beliau laksanakan pembelajaran yang menarik terlebih dahulu. Lalu beliau berikan contoh-contoh nyata dalam pembelajaran, barulah nanti setelah peserta didik terbiasa, jadinya nggak bingung lagi tuh tadi dengan pemanfaatan teknologi ini. Hal lainnya yang Dr. Amber alami dalam pemanfaatan teknologi pada pembelajaran, adanya stereotype bahwa kayaknya cowok aja nih yang pinter dalam menggunakan IT. Cewek seharusnya tidak sebagus itu atau secanggih itu dalam menggunakan IT. Nah, ada juga pengalaman-pengalaman terkait stereotype seperti ini. Dan juga dalam proses diskusi tadi juga dari sisi pengajar bisa juga kita pikirkan bahwa bagus atau enggak ya kalau kita mengintegrasikan teknologi dalam pembelajaran, karena kan kalau misalkan beberapa dosen atau pengajar itu ada yang ketika sekolah tidak ada integrasi teknologi dalam pembelajaran. Maka mungkin beberapa dosen berpikir, ya udahlah saya dulu ketika belajar tidak ada teknologi kok di pembelajaran, berarti saya ngajar juga nggak butuh teknologi. Nah kan ada juga perspektif-perspektif seperti ini. Terus juga ada terkait pengalaman tentang boleh atau enggak sih ChatGPT ya digunakan dalam pembelajaran. Nah ini akan kita bahas lebih lanjut lagi.
So let me give you an example. Oh, okay. Do I have to hold it? Okay. So let me give you an example of how I might do this in my classroom. So up the top there, you can see a round ball. That is called Sphero. It's a robot called Sphero, and it's sold as a toy in Australia. And lots of schools use it as well. And you can drive it using your phone or an iPad, an app on there. And I decided I wanted to get my students to teach angles. So, 180, 360, 90, to try and understand angles, because in the app, you get to choose the angles you're going to do. So first, I wanted to give them some playtime, because when you give students a new technology, all they think about is the technology. They're not thinking about angles the first time you give it to them. So you have to give them time to play, and then when they're comfortable with the technology, then you can add whatever it is. So if I was at a school, I probably would have one technology per term, because too many technologies, introducing lots of new technologies is too much, too distracting for the students. So when I would start, I gave them this game they had to do. So the game was that they had to design a costume, and the Sphero was going to be a supermodel. And then they could do anything they wanted, and they worked in groups. So you can see in that picture, there's lots of cups. The cups are sitting on top of the balls. And then they had to program their supermodel to go down the runway and move from this side to that side, spin around and come back again. This took us maybe 45 minutes to do this. And they were all laughing and joking and having a really good time. So I'm tackling a lot of attitudes here. Technology is hard? No, it's not hard. Technology is boring? No, it doesn't have to be boring. And I'm giving them the opportunity to play. So I showed them how to use it, but then they have time to play and see, oh, what can it do and what can't it do? So before you are thinking about what you actually want to teach, the curriculum point, you need to give students time to experiment and play.
Halo, cek. This one. Oke, jadi seperti yang bisa Bapak Ibu lihat di layar ya, itu ada yang sudut kiri atas itu ada semacam robot namanya Sparrow. Jadi robot Sparrow ini sering digunakan juga sih di pembelajaran di sekolah-sekolah juga ya di Australia. Jadi ada nih satu kasus ya. Jadi Dr. Amber ini pernah melakukan pembelajaran dengan memanfaatkan Sparrow ini, robot Sparrow. Jadi waktu itu Dr. Amber ini mengajarkan tentang angles. Jadi waktu itu kan baru nih Sparrow ini diperkenalkan dalam kelas tersebut. Mahasiswa-mahasiswi atau peserta didiknya tuh baru pertama kali banget nih gunain robot Sparrow ini. Nah, apa sebenarnya yang harus diperkenalkan terlebih dahulu? Nggak langsung terkait konten angles tadi, tapi kita ke teknologinya dulu. Jadi buatlah peserta didik itu nyaman dulu dengan gunain IT-nya, baru nanti setelah itu kita ajarin kontennya. Nah, karena kalau misalkan ada teknologi baru dikenalkan dalam kelas berdasarkan tadi pendapat dan pengalaman Dr. Amber, itu nanti pasti peserta didik itu fokusnya itu ke teknologinya, nggak akan fokus ke konten kita. Jadi kenalin dulu, biarkan mereka familiar atau terbiasa dulu dengan teknologinya, barulah kita bawa konten pembelajaran kita ke dalam kelas. Contohnya tadi Dr. Amber bahkan menghabiskan waktu 45 menit untuk ngenalin ke peserta didiknya terkait robot Sparrow ini. Jadi robot Sparrow-nya disuruh fashion show dulu ya, di program dulu untuk bisa belok ke kiri dan ke kanan seperti di runway seperti itu ya. Baru setelah itu dibawalah konten tentang angle study. Jadi itu berdasarkan pengalaman dari Dr. Amber sehingga attitude dari peserta didik itu positif terhadap teknologi baru yang dibawa ke dalam pembelajaran.
And at the bottom of my instructions, you can see it says, what are the design criteria? So before we started this, the only criteria I had was that you had to make a beautiful costume and send it down the runway and turn it. But we spent some time together with the students talking about other criteria. How would we decide who the winner was? And so we came up with criteria together. And that part of that is to emphasize you need to know what you want before you use technology. Yes, you can experiment and play, but it's really important to have an idea of what you want to do so that you are in charge, not the technology. Because I don't know how many times I've heard my colleagues say, oh, the computer won't let me do that. It's not the computer, it's the wrong program. So we need to get this idea into their heads that you need to think carefully about what you want from technology and then go and search for the one you want. Don't just use this one you've always used if it doesn't let you do what you want to do. Sometimes it does the opposite of what you want to do and you feel like, oh, there's nothing I can do. The school or the university told me I have to use this, but there's always ways around it.
Iya, jadi terkait dengan pemanfaatan robot Sparrow ini ya, kalau dalam konteks pembelajaran Dr. Amber tadi, contohnya nih Dr. Amber tuh pengen peserta didiknya itu membuat kostum untuk ala-ala fashion show tadi ya dengan robot Sparrow. Nah, jadi nanti setelah itu baru Dr. Amber membuat kesepakatan dengan peserta didiknya, kriteria pemenang dari fashion show di kelas ini tuh siapa. Jadi ada proses desain-desain tertentu dalam ada kriteria tertentu dalam pembelajaran yang didesain oleh Dr. Amber di kelasnya. Yang ingin beliau tekankan juga terkait betapa kita jangan membiarkan teknologi yang mengontrol pembelajaran kita. Jadi sering orang bilang, kadang ada orang yang gunain komputer gitu ya, komputer nih kok nggak bisa ngebolehin aku untuk ngelakuin A, B, atau C. Jadi jangan teknologi yang mengontrol kita, tapi kita yang harus mengendalikan teknologi tersebut. Jangan hanya karena beberapa integrasi teknologi diwajibkan, lantas kita paksain. Tetap harus kita jadi main masternya, kita yang ngatur. Nah, tergantung keinginan kita seperti apa, arahan kita seperti apa, barulah teknologi itu yang membantu. Jadi jangan justru teknologi yang mengontrol si dosen tersebut atau pendidik tersebut.
So after the students have had time to play with technology and understand what it can do and what a lesson. So this is, or an activity to teach angles. And when they are designing the lesson or the activity, they must include their justification for using the technology. Now, in this case, I told them you must use Sphero and you are teaching angles. But the idea is that you are really thinking, is the best way to teach this with technology or not? Sometimes technology is the problem. Sometimes it's better not to use technology. So you have to have a very good reason for using it. And so some of the questions I ask them is, okay, we have 3 different robots here. Why are you choosing this one and not that one? And we look into the affordances, the good things that it can do, and the challenges. What are the problems with this one? And we also look carefully at whether it will fit the curriculum point. Now, for this activity, I already knew that the Sphero was good for teaching angles. But if you're a teacher out in a school, you get a technology maybe that the school has provided, you need to think about what would this be good for? Maybe another robot is not good for teaching angles. So it's a waste of time to try. But unless you really understand the technology and what it can do, how do you know which curriculum points it fits best with? And the other thing we talk about with them is, how is your pedagogical approach going to change? Will it be different or not? Because maybe if I'm standing at the front teaching about angles on the boards and each of the students has a worksheet and they're working on that, that's very different than if I have 3 or 4 students all working together to make their robot make a perfect square on the ground. So working collaboratively, technology really promotes that. And that allows the students to learn from each other. So if some students are not very confident, they can ask the other people in their group, how do you do this? And the other students in the group are modeling. They are showing this is how you could use it. So it's very important that you think about, should I use the technology or not? Which technology should I use? And how will my pedagogical approach change if I use this technology?
Oke, jadi setelah tadi ada elemen mendesain kriteria ya, selanjutnya kita ngomongin tentang elemen merencanakan atau planning. Jadi di elemen planning ini, sebagai calon guru kita berpikir nih, ketika kita mau memanfaatkan sebuah teknologi, kenapa harus teknologi ini yang kita gunain? Contohnya tadi yang Dr. Amber kasih contoh kan tentang pemanfaatan robot Sphero ya. Jadi kita mikirin tuh sebagai calon guru, oke, ini kita mau gunain robot Sphero dalam pembelajaran. Tapi kenapa harus robot Sphero yang digunain? Kenapa nggak teknologi yang lain? Itu yang pertama. Kenapa harus teknologi ini? Dan apakah ada alternatif teknologi lainnya yang bisa kita gunain? Nah, yang kedua juga plus minusnya pemanfaatan teknologi ini apa? Itu yang kita pikirkan. Terus yang ketiga juga, apakah kurikulum pembelajaran yang kita implementasikan itu cocok dengan teknologi yang mau kita gunain di dalam kelas? Tentunya harus ada elemen-elemen terkait kurikulum yang kita analisis juga. Baru poin keempat, dengan memanfaatkan teknologi tadi, apakah itu lantas bisa membuat pedagogi kita menjadi lebih baik di dalam kelas? Contohnya, ada perbandingan yang tadi dikemukakan oleh Dr. Amber. Bayangin kalau kita ngajarin tentang angles itu cuma nyuruh peserta didik ngerjain soal gitu. Berarti kan itu pembelajarannya individual saja kan ya, hanya belajarnya itu dengan diri sendiri gitu, secara benar-benar mandiri. Tapi kalau kita memanfaatkan robot Sphero tadi, bisa tercipta pembelajaran kolaboratif. Contohnya mereka bisa menyusun robot tadi untuk diprogram bergerak ke kanan dan ke kiri dalam kelompok. Jadi ada pembelajaran kolaboratif di sana. Dan kalau terjadi pembelajaran kolaboratif kan siswa atau peserta didik yang cenderung tidak aktif bisa terpacu menjadi lebih aktif. Dan peserta didik yang tidak aktif tadi atau peserta didik yang masih bingung itu juga bisa ngelihat dari peserta didik lainnya yang lebih aktif. Jadi kalau pembelajaran kolaboratif tentunya lebih banyak hal positifnya dibandingkan kalau kita nggak gunain teknologi dan hanya menginstruksikan peserta didik hanya mengerjain tugas saja secara mandiri.
And the final part is reflecting. So after they have designed and justified something, we go and test it with some students. And then they have to come back and reflect. Did the students learn about angles or not? Because often when we go to the school, when the students are leaving, I will ask the students, what did you learn today? And lots of them say, we played with robots, and they don't mention angles at all. And so then you know this wasn't planned well enough, or maybe robots were not a good choice for this, or maybe we needed to have one session where we introduced them and then another session where we did angles. So the reflecting part is really important. And this is also where they can reflect on, is this the right technology? Maybe there's a different technology that would be better. But always when you're using technology, if you're learning about technology, that's fine. Technology can be the focus. But if you're learning about angles, you don't want technology to be the focus. If it is, it's taking away from the learning outcomes and it's not worth using.
Iya, jadi tahap berikutnya itu adalah merefleksi ya Bapak Ibu ya. Jadi contohnya tadi udah dilaksanakan nih pembelajaran tentang angle study. Terus kita sebagai edukator pastinya kan biasanya setelah pembelajaran kita nanya ya ke peserta didik, ayo kita udah belajar apa aja hari ini. Tapi kalau fokus peserta didik itu malah jadinya salah ya, salah fokus, justru mention teknologinya. Oh kita belajar tentang robot, nah berarti itu jadinya salah fokus ya Bapak Ibu ya. Berarti nggak cocok robot tadi, jadi robot ini malah jadi salah fokus jadinya ya peserta didik ya. Padahal kan yang pengen mereka jawab itu belajar apa hari ini tentang angles gitu kan ya kontennya. Nah jadi berarti itu di proses refleksi kita kemudian kita berpikir ada hal yang perlu kita ubah. Mungkin tadi ya kata Dr. Amber IT-nya mungkin diganti sehingga bisa gunain teknologi yang tidak terlalu memecah konsentrasi peserta didik. Karena tetap konten itu harus menjadi fokus utama. Atau mungkin tadi tahap pengenalan tentang teknologinya mungkin kita persingkat gitu ya, banyakin tentang kontennya justru, jadi sehingga setelah pembelajaran pun tidak salah fokus peserta didiknya.
And this slide here is something I was talking about yesterday. When I give the instructions to the students about what they need to do, what am I assuming? So here, the different colors of pink go from I'm telling you exactly what to do through to you can do whatever you want. You can do it on your own. And sometimes I will look at my own instructions to the students and I think, oh, I've assumed that everybody knows how to do this. I've assumed that everybody has done coding before. And so I have to modify my task and give extra examples just to talk about that.
Ya, jadi ini yang dibicarain Dr. Amber ya di GDIC. Mungkin Bapak Ibu ada yang ikut ya GDIC kemarin. Itu sebenarnya sebelum pembelajaran itu kan kita ada asumsi ya sebagai edukator gitu. Dalam beberapa elemen pembelajaran itu contohnya kalau yang paling atas itu kan tujuan pembelajaran gitu ya. Tujuan pembelajaran kan biasanya emang kita diktein ya ke mahasiswa. Tapi ada beberapa elemen-elemen pembelajaran yang sebenarnya kita tuh ngarepin mahasiswa itu belajarnya itu mandiri. Jadi ini yang di tabel ini adalah semakin menuju ke pink tua itu semakin mandiri kita harapkan peserta didik untuk belajar. Maybe you will explain it in details. That's right regarding to this table. Ya, jadi ini sebagai visualisasi level kemandirian belajar dari peserta didik. Semakin ke arah ungu itu semakin mandiri diharapkan peserta didik untuk belajar.
So we're going to move a little bit more now into games and using digital games to teach in the classroom. So some of the research and some of this I presented yesterday at the conference is in Indonesia, the amount of gamers is 185 million, which is a lot. So in Indonesia, a lot of people are engaging with digital games. And so how can we use this to leverage teaching and learning in a slightly different way through digital games. The main device used in Indonesia, according to the research, is the mobile phone. And the second one is the Nintendo Switch, that because it's more portable.
Ya, jadi ini juga dipresentasikan oleh Dr. Kelly ya kemarin di GDIC bahwa berdasarkan penelitian itu ada 185 juta pemain game di Indonesia ya. Ini ya contoh-contohnya ya. So they are representing the 195 millions. You guys are playing games, right? Ya, you play a lot, right? Sama dengan masa-masa yang join di Zoom ya, banyak yang gamers nih kayaknya ya. Nah, jadi itu banyak banget loh. Sehingga Dr. Kelly ini memantik tadi ya, bagaimana banyaknya atau tingginya angka pemain game di Indonesia ini bisa kita manfaatin untuk pembelajaran, alih-alih hanya game aja. Berdasarkan riset sih, kalau anak-anak muda itu ya banyaknya itu kayaknya gunain kalau gawai atau gadget itu HP ya. HP udah pasti ya, paling banyak ya. Sama Nintendo ya. Nintendo Switch ya, karena emang portable gitu.
But what we need to be thinking about is that not all games have been designed the same. And so just like Amber was talking about, what is the technology that is needed, that's fit for purpose, we need to think about that with games as well.
Ya, jadi sama untuk setiap games tuh nggak semerta-merta juga bisa dimanfaatin dalam pembelajaran sih. Sama kayak tadi yang dibahas Dr. Amber juga ya, nggak semua itu bisa pas gitu diintegrasiin dalam pembelajaran. Maka dari itu yang akan kita dengan presentasi bagaimana games ini pembelajaran kita.
So some of the pedagogy that's embedded in games. So games have been designed to be played in a certain way and for the user to interact with them in a certain way. So we know Vygotsky talks about the zone of proximal development, and he talks about learning as just right. If it's too hard, we go, no, I'm not doing that. That's too hard, you know. So we need to find a game that supports them where they are at in terms of the curriculum. The game then can act as the more knowledgeable other in providing the support in moving the student forward into another type of learning. So it is really engaging because it's just-in-time learning. I was presenting yesterday on, I looked at the literacy that's in video games yesterday, and I was talking about how I was playing a game which is based in Southeast Asia called Gibbons, Beneath the Trees, and it's a conservation game. And my learning was just in time. I had to learn if the bulldozers were going through and the ground was on fire, how am I going to navigate myself as the gibbon through the game? So games have this natural just-in-time learning embedded into them.
Jadi seperti yang disampaikan Dr. Kelly ya bersama siswi dan Bapak Ibu, sebenarnya kalau terkait dengan pembelajaran berbasis games ini lumayan relevan dengan zone of proximal development yang dikemukakan oleh Vygotsky. Kalau kita ngomongin tentang teori pembelajaran gitu ya. Jadi kalau dalam belajar kan gitu ya, kalau terlalu susah banget pembelajarannya jadinya peserta didik nggak mau belajar. Tapi kalau terlalu mudah juga ya udahlah main aja gitu ya, nggak usah belajar. Jadi harus pas, harus ada poin yang pas. Jadi sebenarnya elemen-elemen yang ditampilkan dalam games itu juga seperti itu. Kalau games terlalu sulit kan kita juga males ya maininnya ya. Tapi kalau terlalu mudah ya udahlah, mudah banget gamesnya nggak akan menarik juga. Jadi ada suatu kepasan yang harus dicapai juga sebenarnya dalam permainan di games. Tadi Dr. Kelly sempat kasih contoh salah satu games yang beliau sempat mainkan. What's the name of the games that you mentioned earlier?
Gibbons Beneath the Trees.
Gibbon Beneath the Trees. Ada yang pernah main? So it's about conservation.
Yeah, so it's about the adult gibbons. You play the gibbon and you need to navigate your family of gibbons through the trees. And as you go through the game, the impact of humans becomes more prominent.
Oke, mungkin kayak Angry Bird lah ya. kayak gitu kayaknya ya. Jadi ya itu salah satu yang Dr. Kelly kasih contoh gitu. Pada intinya kalau terkait dengan permainan game sama ZPD oleh Vygotsky itu sebenarnya ada sesuatu yang mirip antara permainan games dan juga pembelajaran yang terjadi di dalam diri peserta didik.
So keeping on the theme of pedagogy embedded in games, another very popular model for pedagogy is Bandura's self-efficacy model. And in the self-efficacy model, there are 4 experiences that we want students to have to improve their self-efficacy, to make them feel more confident. One of them is I have succeeded in something. So for example, if you are doing a maths problem and you keep getting it wrong and wrong and wrong, you think, I'm not good at maths. But as soon as you start to get it right, you think, I'm good at maths. And games know this. Games are designed to help you experience success. Maybe you have to play the same level 10 times, but you're determined you get success. And when you do, you put a lot of work into it, you get the success, you're so happy. So mastery experiences are embedded in games.
Oke, jadi ini kita juga ngomongin terkait dengan pedagogi yang sebenarnya terkandung dalam games ya. Mungkin sama mahasiswi pastinya kalau Bapak Ibu dosen selalu mengajarkan hal ini ya. Model self-efficacy oleh Bandura itu mengemukakan bahwa ada beberapa poin di mana bisa meningkatkan self-efficacy daripada peserta didik. Yang pertama itu ada mastery experiences atau memberikan pengalaman di mana peserta didik itu ngerasa sukses gitu. Nah, games itu juga mengintegrasikan elemen ini. Jadi ketika kita contohnya nih, kalau dalam mengerjakan soal matematika kalau gitu ya, tapi kalau kita benar gitu, rumusnya benar kan kita jadi senang, jadi termotivasi lagi kan untuk belajar. Nah di games kan juga seperti itu, kalau kita gagal terus mainin suatu permainan, kita jadi males kan maininnya. Makanya mungkin ada level-level tertentu juga dalam games ya, jadi ketika memang kita ada beberapa kesuksesan dalam bermain games itu jadi memacu si pemain game itu untuk terus bermain oleh pengembang games-games di luar sana.
And the next experience is vicarious learning. So this is when you watch other people do it. So often that's the teacher. You're watching the teacher, or sometimes when you're working in groups, you see your colleagues or your other students doing something. In games, then, because often they will model to you, this is what you need to do. So you can see, oh, I have to press this button and this button in order to make it jump up to this level. So there's a lot of vicarious learning in there. Also, there's the social or verbal persuasion. So that's when other people tell you, oh, you're good at maths or you're terrible at maths. And in games, when you succeed, you get, music or stars or something in there to encourage you and make you feel good. And that also goes on to the psychological and emotional states. It's fun. You want to play a game. We want education to be like that, right? We want students to say, I love learning maths. And the other thing I've got in there is flow. What we want our students to do is be so interested in what they are learning that they're completely focused on it. And that happens in games, right? When you're playing a game, you can lose hours of time because you're so focused on it. How do I get to the next level? And so all these things are embedded in games. So game designers know this is how I can get people to play.
Oke, jadi tadi ya, yang pertama kita udah ngomongin terkait elemen yang terkandung di games yang relevan dengan model self-efficacy-nya Bandura terkait dengan mastery experiences atau bagaimana tadi para desainer games-games ini itu membuat si pemain game ini ngerasa sukses gitu ya, kayak tadi yang udah kita bahas di awal. Terus berikutnya Dr. Amber tadi ngejelasin poin berikutnya terkait vicarious learning. Vicarious learning ini maksudnya kalau kita main game, sering kan kita jadinya itu ngelihat, gimana ya biar aku bisa sukses juga dalam mainin game ini. Aku lihat gamer lain, sering kan ya. Bagi sekarang di YouTube kan banyak juga yang ngeliput ya. Nah proses seperti ini tuh dinamakan vicarious learning. Ketika kita itu belajar dari ngelihat orang gitu loh. Dan bagaimana nantinya kita bisa sukses juga dengan harapan seperti itu. Poin berikutnya tentang persuasi sosial. Jadi kalau di main games itu kalau kita udah berhasil melalui level tertentu kan nanti ada dikasih kayak audio gitu ya, audio menang atau bagaimana itu kan juga meningkatkan kepercayaan diri kita. Nah yang keempat itu ada stase psikologikal dan emosional karena ya yang namanya pengembang games itu pasti mendesain games untuk menjadi fun kan, gak mungkin boring. Nah, kalau kita kaitkan dengan pembelajaran, bagaimana lantas desainer pembelajaran juga bisa mengembangkan pembelajaran yang fun juga. Sehingga nanti peserta didiknya itu belajar sebagaimana pemain game main games, ya nggak? Jadinya fun, terus jadinya lupa waktu gitu ya. Nah, harapannya pembelajaran juga bisa berlaku seperti ini.
Okay. I think this one's working.
Oh.
So what we would like you to do is to get back onto the Padlet and think about, have you ever used games as part of your teaching? Maybe what games have you used and how have you used them?
Or maybe even part of your learning.
Yes.
Have you learnt things from games?
Jadi Bapak Ibu boleh dan mahasiswa boleh kembali scan barcode-nya ya, or probably also through link as well.
Yes.
If it's possible. Can they use the previous
It's
link
the
that you
same.
sent? Oh ya, jadi tadi di awal Dr. Kelly kirim link ya di fitur komentar Zoom. Bapak Ibu bisa klik dari link itu atau bisa langsung scan di layar barcode-nya dan silakan dijawab tuh pertanyaannya. Pertanyaannya adalah gimana Bapak Ibu memanfaatkan games atau permainan sebagai bagian dari proses pembelajaran Bapak Ibu di kelas. Atau boleh juga pernah nggak Bapak Ibu atau adik-adik mahasiswa-mahasiswi itu terlibat dalam pembelajaran berbasis games di kelas. Jadi boleh hal yang pernah Bapak Ibu lakuin atau boleh juga hal yang Bapak Ibu alami di kelas terkait dengan games ini. So they can tell about whether they do that or it get involved with the games-based learning implementation. It could be both, right? Yeah. Silakan ditunggu jawabannya. We're waiting for your answers. Boleh gunain link yang di-share di awal tadi ya Bapak Ibu ya. You can also use the link shared by Dr. Kelly in the beginning of the session. So it's the same. Also press the plus button, right? For the comments.
Yes.
Caranya sama ya. Tadi silakan kalian tulis di komentarnya dan ditekan simbol tanda tambah ya tadi ya. The games will appear.
So they're all really interesting comments. And that one about the atmosphere is really true. You know, when you tell your students, we're going to play a game, everybody's immediately engaged. They want to play. It's exciting. But as I said before, you need to be careful about the games you choose. Kahoot, which I can see you use there, has been used to death in Australia. Every school uses it. Every university uses it. And when the music comes on in the classroom, some of the students go, oh, yes. So you do have to, you know, keep monitoring. Is this still engaging? Are they still interested, or are they now throwing their hands in the air and saying, I don't want to play?
Jadi memang ya kalau misalkan tiba-tiba gitu ya pengajarnya bilang di kelas atau bapak ibu dosennya atau mungkin guru-gurunya ya ketika sekolah, kita bakal main games hari ini kan pada senang gitu ya, yeay langsung gitu ya. Cuman perlu diperhatikan juga adik-adik mahasiswa dan mungkin bapak ibu juga yang bergabung ya. Karena kalau kita ngomongin Kahoot, tadi Dr. Amber McLeod mengatakan bahwa kalau di Universitas Jambi sendiri baru ya kayaknya ya Kahoot ya baru dan sangat-sangat menurut saya pribadi juga sangat-sangat asik. Tapi kalau di Australia itu sudah sering banget digunain sampai-sampai peserta didik itu trauma dengan lagu Kahoot. Jadi kalau udah dengar lagu Kahoot tuh kayak aduh gitu kan, ini lagi ini lagi. Nah, maka dari itu poinnya adalah penggunaan games ini pun juga harus kita terus monitor. Ini masih engaging nggak? Masih menarik nggak nih gamesnya untuk peserta didik? Kalau udah nggak menarik lagi ya baiknya kan diganti gitu sehingga tidak ada trauma berkepanjangan gitu ya. Dengar Kahoot langsung stres kayak yang di Australia tadi kata Dr. Amber. Can continue?
So how do we then think about choosing a game? Because we know that there are lots of different types of games out there. So the first thing that we need to think about is what is the outcome that we want to achieve? So if I want to teach something around vocabulary, for example, I need to choose a game that has really rich words in it to teach that vocabulary. If I'm going to teach something about maths, so maybe substitution, I need to choose a game where that's going to come through. We need to think about, is the game closed or is it open? And why is this important? So we have some games where you answer the question and it's right or wrong. And then we have other games where you might answer the question and there's many different outcomes that could occur from that. And you get different learning from both of those. So in terms of the pedagogy, the teaching and learning, how do we as teachers make decisions? How are we going to teach something? So the first one is obviously behaviorism. So these are drill and response games and rote learning. So often they're the games where there's one set answer. For example, you might be teaching multiplication in maths. And you might have a game where the students need to answer something and then the grandma moves a step forward and it's a race. So that's an example of a game where there's either a right or a wrong answer. It's a drill and practice game. It's a rote learning. I might throw over to you, Raisa.
Oh, oke. Okay. Iya, jadi kita harus tahu dalam memilih games yang baik dalam pembelajaran itu yang seperti apa. Karena kan banyak banget ya pilihan games ya, apalagi saat ini gitu, games yang bisa dimanfaatin untuk pembelajaran tuh banyak banget. Pengembang games khusus untuk pembelajaran pun sudah sangat banyak ya, termasuk mungkin lulusan dari fakultas kita sendiri ya Bapak Ibu ya. Nah, hal pertama yang harus kita pertimbangkan adalah apa yang mau kita raih dalam pembelajaran ini. Contohnya nih, kita mau ngajarin tentang kosakata atau vocabulary, maka kita pilih games yang kaya akan kosakata itu sendiri. Mungkin salah satu contohnya ini sih pengalaman personal saya ya, games Harvest Moon itu ada ya. Games Harvest Moon itu kita belajar nanam, belajar masak tuh banyak banget kosakata yang bisa kita pelajarin di sana. Terus I was talking about this one Harvest Moon game that I played when I was in elementary schools, which is like talking about daily activities, and it's really I learned a lot vocabularies from that. So probably that's one of the examples that we can use to learn about vocabularies. Terus juga kalau mau belajar tentang matematika gitu ya, silakan kita pilih games yang ada tentang penambahannya gitu ya, pengurangan, perkalian yang mungkin nanti bisa harus cepet nih ngitungnya kalau misalkan konteks kita adalah matematika. Terus hal berikutnya yang harus kita perhatikan juga apakah games ini itu bersifat tertutup atau terbuka. Maksudnya apa? Kalau bersifat tertutup ini artinya gini, ada games yang ketika kita jawab pertanyaan di game tersebut nanti cuman kasih ini sering menguji ada pembelajaran yang seperti itu ya Bapak Ibu ya, yang dibuat mahasiswanya kadang ketika dijawab ya feedbacknya cuma benar atau salah, tapi ada juga games pembelajaran yang ketika dijawab itu ada jawaban benarnya seperti apa gitu ya Ibu ya, ada feedback lebih lanjutnya lah, jangan cuman oh ya Anda benar, oh ya Anda salah, nggak cuman seperti itu aja jawaban dari atau feedback dari games tersebut. Nah, kalau kita ngomongin di konteks pedagogi, sebenarnya ada beberapa games itu yang cocok dengan teori behaviorisme. Jadi ada games itu yang memang bersifat rotasi. Jadi apapun yang kita jawab itu dia akan balik pertanyaannya itu diulang-ulang gitu. Itu aja berotasi gitu dalam permainan gamesnya. Biasanya ini adalah games pembelajaran untuk terkait dalam mempelajari kosakata biasanya. Jadi pertanyaan yang sama itu diulang-ulang.
So the next one is cognitism, which is learning by making. How do we apply our learning and make something? So there's games out there where we're able to interact with the objects, and they allow us to think about what's going on, apply our past learning to the problem to solve the problem. So it's learning by doing. And we know how important that is. I always tell my students in Australia a story about when I got a very fancy TV, and the guy came in and he set it up, and I was watching what he was doing, and he was telling me how to use the remote, and I knew what he was saying and I understood. And then he handed me the remote and said, now I want you to do it. And I had understood everything he said, but I looked at the remote and thought, I don't know how to do this. So it's really important that when we learn something, that we're able to put it in practice. And these types of games that are based on cognitism allow us to do that kind of work.
Ya, berikutnya ada juga games yang terkait dengan teori kognitivisme. Contohnya ini adalah games yang membiarkan si pemain game ini untuk berinteraksi dengan objek sekitar. So you mentioned the one that using the remote. Ada nggak sih yang pakai ini kan bantuan itu? Nah, itu contohnya itu games yang terkait dengan teori kognitivisme. Jadi di mana kita itu sebagai pemain bisa berinteraksi dengan fitur-fitur games tersebut seperti itu.
And the last one is experiential learning, and that's these really open games. So if we think about SimCity, Civilizations, those build games where it's quite open. So it's an example of an open game. So the games that you choose will depend on how you believe students learn. If you believe that students only learn through drill, they will be the kind of games that you are drawn to. But if you believe that students learn by doing, you will look for much more open-ended games, which potentially can provide really rich experiences.
Jadi games mana yang Bapak Ibu ingin pilih untuk pembelajaran, yaitu tergantung dari apa yang Bapak Ibu percaya paling efektif untuk diimplementasikan. Contohnya kalau Bapak Ibu merasa bahwa games, drills and response itu paling efektif untuk diimplementasikan, berarti ya silakan mengintegrasikan games yang terkait dengan drill and response tadi ya pada pembelajaran. Namun kalau misalkan Bapak Ibu percaya nih, oh peserta didik ini bagusnya ini diintegrasiin dengan pembelajaran terintegrasi games yang bisa memungkinkan mereka berinteraksi dengan objek-objek sekitar. Nah, sebenarnya diasumsikan itu yang lebih baik daripada jenis games lainnya.
Okay. So when you are choosing games, there are actually and there are games that are being used for citizen science. So citizen science is when, for example, there is a lot of data and it's too much for the scientists to go through and do it themselves. So, for example, there are lots and lots of pictures of penguins from a satellite, and you can play a game where you go and figure out how many penguins you can see. And so that helps the scientists. In Australia, we have a big one. It's coming up next week, actually, called Birds in Your Garden, because it's too difficult for scientists to go everywhere in Australia and see where the birds are. So they have a special app, and you get it on your phone, and you just say, in 24 hours, what can I see in my garden? And we have it for insects and kinds of things too. And then I've got a picture up there of some other games which are quite serious games. One of them, Fold It, is a game where when you get onto it, you see a structure and you have to think about how you can fold it, the structure in different ways. And it's actually used for enzyme structures and proteins. So in 2008, the game was used to help scientists understand AIDS. So they took some AIDS proteins, put them in the game, and millions of people around the world were playing the game, and they came up with answers. And it was used in the COVID pandemic as well, when they were trying to figure out what they could do to make the vaccine. They used it. And one other example they had was they had been working on this particular enzyme structure for 15 years. They put the enzyme in the game, and in 10 days they knew the structure. Mm. So while games are fun, there are serious games as well. So depending on what you want your students to learn, you might be looking at something like this if you're teaching biology or even chemistry or something. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting because all our lecturers here are from science department as well. So jadi emang menarik ya Bapak Ibu, apalagi kebetulan Bapak Ibu kami yang ada di sini juga dari bidang kependidikan, matematika dan sains ya Bapak Ibu. Jadi sebenarnya games ini ada yang seriusnya juga ya Bapak Ibu ya. Saya juga baru tahu ini. This is also the first time I knew there's such a serious games. Seperti yang di layar itu Bapak Ibu, ada games namanya pertama tuh kan ada games namanya Citizen Science. Jadi games ini kalau bisa dibilang kalau kita bayangkan itu contohnya adalah kita bisa menghitung berapa jumlah penguin yang ada di area-area tertentu. Jadi sebenarnya dengan kita main game ini kita juga bantu saintis gitu, karena susah gitu ya menghitung banyaknya penguin yang ada pada beberapa area tertentu. Jadi kita mainin games ini juga secara sains juga kita membantu peneliti untuk menghitung distribusi dari makhluk hidup tertentu. Contohnya seperti itu. Nah, itu ada namanya games folded. Games folded ini adalah games yang serius ya. Ini contoh-contoh games yang serius. Itu adalah games yang diperuntukkan agar masyarakat luas bisa membantu peneliti untuk menganalisis atau mengetahui struktur enzim dan protein. Bahkan melalui games folded ini di tahun 2008 hanya dalam beberapa hari saja dimainkan oleh masyarakat luas bisa diketahui lebih banyak terkait dengan AIDS dan juga berkontribusi dalam pandemi COVID-19 juga agar kondisi pandemi ketika itu bisa menjadi lebih baik. Nah, games folded ini juga membantu peneliti dari yang tadinya dibutuhkan waktu selama 15 tahun gitu ya. Karena adanya games folded ini yang bisa dimainin oleh masyarakat luas, jadinya 10 hari saja bisa diketahui struktur enzim tertentu. Begitu Bapak Ibu. Jadi kita main games tapi secara formal kita juga bisa bantuin saintis jadinya, bantuin ilmuwan.
Another thing to think of with games is making games, getting your students to make games. So probably most of you have heard of constructivism, which was from Bandura, where people learn from their interaction with the world. So in technology, in digital technologies, Papert is a very famous author, and he came up with an idea called constructionism. It's very similar to constructivism, but the idea is that you must make something, and then the thing that you have made can be critiqued, and it helps everybody see what the student is understanding. So for example, if they create a program, the teacher can look at it and say, oh, that's interesting. Why did you do it this way? Why did you do that? If it's just in the student's head, it's difficult to help them see what they're not understanding. If it's constructed, it's a bit easier. So making games is often promoted over playing games. And when you think about using games to teach other things, imagine this small game, a quiz. A quiz is a very simple game. If you, as the teacher, make a multiple choice quiz, then all the students are doing is choosing the right answer. But if the students have to make a multiple choice quiz, they need to come up with 4 answers that might be right. So one of them is right, and the other 3 are usually common misconceptions. So you can imagine if the student has to come up with 4 answers for a question, they really have to have a deep understanding of the topic in order to do that. So while playing games is fun, actually students love to make games, and you can make a quiz on PowerPoint, or on Kahoot or something like that. It's not difficult to do, but the thought process, what am I going to write, is quite complex.
Ya, jadi kalau kita berbicara tentang memanfaatkan games dalam pembelajaran, tadi kita udah ngomongin ya di awal bagaimana apabila games diintegrasikan dalam pembelajaran. Namun mungkin kita juga bisa mulai berpikir bahwa gimana ya kalau kita suruh aja tuh si peserta didik yang ngebuat game gitu. Jadi alih-alih hanya bermain game, tapi gimana kalau kita suruh mereka aja tuh, biar mereka aja yang juga membuat games tersebut. Karena kan kalau games dibikin pakai PPT juga bisa, dibikin pakai Kahoot juga bisa. Jadi seharusnya tidak susah sebenarnya. Karena kalau kita ngomongin tentang teori pembelajaran ya, kalau hanya bermain game itu tentunya terkait dengan yang tadi udah kita ngomongin ya, konstruktivisme dan juga ada teori Bandura. Nah, kalau misalkan kita memacu peserta didik untuk membuat games, itu ada terkait dengan yang namanya constructionism. Nah, konstruksionisme ini di mana peserta didik itu diharuskan untuk membuat sesuatu atau menghasilkan sesuatu, tapi harus menerima kritik terkait dengan sesuatu yang mereka buat tersebut. Jadi biasanya setelah mereka ngembangin sesuatu, setelah itu direview tuh sama dosennya atau sama supervisornya. Nah, karena kalau misalkan kita membiarkan peserta didik untuk mengembangkan sesuatu, jadinya kan mereka lebih dalam ya berpikir ya. Kalau kita ibaratkan, kalau kita hanya menginstruksikan peserta didik menjawab soal pilihan ganda, kan mereka bisa cangcingcup ya. Tapi kalau mereka yang ngebuat soal pilihan ganda, kan mereka harus bikin lagi pilihan jawaban A-nya apa, B, C, D-nya apa. Artinya kan harus lebih dalam mereka memahami pembelajaran tersebut. Nah, sama dengan membuat games juga akan membimbing peserta didik berpikir dengan lebih dalam. Alih-alih hanya menginstruksikan mereka untuk bermain game saja, seperti itu.
And can I also add that when you get the students to make the game, it's actually much easier for the teacher because they are so excited to make a game that they do all the work and you just have to check if they're doing it correctly. Whereas when you are making the multiple choice quizzes, it's quite difficult.
Yeah. Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, when I'm teaching at a university level, one thing that I have done is assigned the students into groups, and then from the reading, they're responsible for the reading one week, and they have to come in the following week with a Kahoot quiz from the readings that they have designed, and they play it with the class. What that allows me to do is I can assess what they know from the creation of the quiz, and I can assess what the rest of the group know from how they answer the quiz.
Ya, jadi memang sebenarnya kalau misalkan mahasiswa ya sama mahasiswi ya setiap minggu disuruh bikin PPT gitu ya, itu sebenarnya biar kalian tuh belajar gitu kan. Ya, itu tuh belajar sama kayak kalian bikin, kan kalau disuruh ngembangin game suka kan? Kan asik tuh, suka lah ya Ibu ya, mereka disuruh bikin games gitu. Jadi sebenarnya itu ya memang sih ya, jadinya tugas dosennya itu mengawasi kalian, tapi percayalah itu sebenarnya biar kalian juga berpikir lebih dalam gitu ya. Contohnya tadi dikasih contoh sama Dr. Kelly, kalau di kelas beliau itu beliau suruh 1 minggu tuh suruh baca. 1 minggu disuruh baca konten. Nah, minggu berikutnya itu disuruh bikin Kahoot, Bapak Ibu. Mahasiswanya disuruh bikin Kahoot, disuruh bikin soal di Kahoot tersebut. Minggu depannya dicek sama dosennya, terus ketika itu juga dimainkan di dalam kelas, dicoba nanti peserta didik yang di dalam kelas tersebut menjawab pertanyaan dari Kahoot tadi yang juga dibuat oleh peserta didik itu juga. Jadi bisa dinilai tuh udah paham atau belum dalam membuat pertanyaan kan, jenis pertanyaan kita juga bisa nilai ya, pertanyaannya bagus apa enggak, terus apakah bisa dijawab atau tidak pertanyaannya, bisa nggak mereka mendesain dengan Kahoot. Nah itu juga sebenarnya sangat-sangat membantu dosen juga dalam menilai mahasiswa. Jadi alih-alih dosennya yang nyiapin Kahoot-nya, dosennya yang nyiapin IT-nya, mending coba mahasiswa jadi lebih aktif buat gitu kan, kalian jawab sendiri gitu. They're like laughing because actually in our context, one common thing that we do is like we instructed them or guided them to create PPT PowerPoint for the next meeting. So they're like, okay, I'm familiar with this kind of thing ya. Mungkin ya nanti berikutnya pakai Kahoot atau berbasis games lainnya.
Could make it into a game.
Yes.
Ya, sama ya, beban kerja kalian tetap sama, cuman
Yeah.
this time we use game gitu ya. Just wait.
So this is one of the questions actually from the conference yesterday that Amber and I were discussing actually after the conference. I presented, as I said yesterday, on using video games to teach sustainability. And one of the questions was, well, how do I use that as part of my teaching? So when we play a game, it's often individual. How do I actually use that? So what I was talking about yesterday was the implicit and explicit learning that's evident in the game. So the games that you choose, sometimes what's happening in the game, you're kind of learning certain things as you play it. And other games are quite explicit. So you actually know what you're learning. It actually shows you what you're learning. So literacy educator, games can be used as what we call a mentor text. So when we're teaching a new concept, we're often using the text as a stimulus. So the text could be a book, it could be a YouTube video, it could be a infographic, it could be a song, it could be a dance. They are all like text. And you can use video games like a mentor text. So you can stop the video game or stop the game and then have what we call a dialogic discussion. Dialogic discussions is where we, like Socrates, a Socratic circle, for example, and we discuss what's actually happening. What did you think of this? What are you learning as part of this game? Do you think, for example, in the Gibbons game, do you think that it's learning, quite really rich discussions? The other thing about games is that they are multimodal. And we know that with learners in the 21st century, we just don't read text with just alphabetical print anymore. We read images, we read sound, we read music, we read audio. So a video game provides us with multiple modes of communication, which supports our learning.
Ya, jadi dalam memanfaatkan games untuk pembelajaran, sebenarnya beberapa games itu memang ada beberapa karakter. Ada games yang dalam pembelajaran itu bisa meninggalkan makna yang benar-benar eksplisit untuk dipahami oleh peserta didik. Tapi ada juga games-games yang makna pembelajarannya itu bersifat implisit, artinya tidak terlalu gamblang gitu ya, meninggalkan kesan pembelajaran atau kesan kontennya kepada peserta didik atau mahasiswa. Nah, lalu selanjutnya yang di-share oleh Dr. Kelly, pengalaman beliau mengintegrasikan games pada pembelajaran karena beliau kebetulan mengajarnya kebanyakan itu di bidang literatur gitu ya. Ada yang namanya mentor text. Nah, ada juga yang namanya dialogic discussion seperti yang tertera di layar di depan ya. Artinya adalah ketika kita mengintegrasikan games dalam pembelajaran itu bisa juga kita mendesain atau memanfaatkan games tersebut untuk memacu peserta didik berpikir. Jadi contohnya misalkan games tentang lingkungan. Nah, kita bisa tuh kita pause atau kita berikan stimulasi pada bagian-bagian tertentu di games tersebut. Mungkin kita kasih pertanyaan atau semacam clue gitu ya atau bentuk apakah benar contohnya yang manusia yang menyebabkan kebakaran hutan. Jadi ada bagian-bagian dari games tersebut yang memacu peserta didik untuk berpikir lebih dalam. Kalau kalian masing-masing mungkin pernah dengar Socrates ya, ada filsuf, itu kan lebih kepada bagaimana kita itu secara kritis berdialog dengan diri kita sendiri. Jadi ada pendekatan filosofikal juga di sana. Dan poin selanjutnya disampaikan Dr. Kelly adalah bagaimana games ini bersifat multi model. Artinya kalau kita belajar dengan memanfaatkan games itu kan nggak kayak kita baca PowerPoint ya. Kita bisa belajar dari audio yang disajikan games tersebut, dari gambar yang disajikan games, dari mungkin atmosfer atau suasana yang bisa diciptakan oleh games, pesan moral dari games tersebut. Jadi banyak elemen dari suatu games itu yang bisa mendukung pembelajaran, nggak semerta-merta hanya melalui teks saja atau satu jenis komunikasi saja.
Just very quickly. Actually, talking about the multimodality, when we were at the conference yesterday, Raisa, a lot of what you were saying we couldn't understand because it was in Bahasa, but you had someone playing music.
Yeah.
So we someone is coming to the stage. Now it's time to go. Okay. Okay. So this is one here where I just wanted to make one comment, which is when you are teaching, the number one, the gold standard is to have real life experiences. If you can have a real life experience, don't use the technology because it's better. So for example, if I wanted to visit the bridge here in Jambi, okay, you're in Jambi, just take your students to the bridge and do something there. But if I'm not in Jambi and I want to look at the bridge, then I can use the digital version. And there are a lot of different ways you can use games. A lot of them are things that you can't do. You can't fire a gun in class. You can't go inside the body. There's lots of things you can't do. So these simulator games can be used for this. So that's all. Yeah, that was that one.
Jadi masih terkait dengan memanfaatkan games untuk pembelajaran. Kalau dari Dr. Amber sama Dr. Kelly, mereka merekomendasikan selama masih bisa dibawa peserta didik kepada pengalaman yang sesungguhnya, bawalah ke pengalaman yang sesungguhnya. Jangan kita justru oh ya udahlah disimulasiin aja, sementara bisa sebenarnya mereka alami sendiri. Contohnya mungkin kayak kalau di MIPA itu virtual lab ya Bapak Ibu ya. Sama masih bisa dibawa ke lab ya silakan dibawa benar-benar ke lab gitu. Jadi jangan kita hanya melalui virtual lab saja. Jadi real life experiences itu masih tentu saja prioritas seperti itu. Tapi apabila tidak memungkinkan barulah dibikin virtual lab-nya. Contohnya kayak tadi yang di-mention Dr. Amber, contohnya kita mau bawa peserta didik itu mengalami langsung menyeberangi Gentala, because last night we visited the bridge, right? Gentala Aras ya tadi malam kita ke sana ya. Ya kalau di Jambi ya bawa langsung ke Gentala. Tapi kalau misalkan posisinya di Australia gitu ya, ya berarti Gentala Arasnya diberikan dalam bentuk virtual. Tapi selama kita bisa kunjungi langsung, membiarkan peserta didik mengalami langsung, prioritaskanlah real life experiences tersebut seperti itu. Terus juga terkait dengan simulasi yang dihadirkan games, kenapa ada simulasi? Karena banyak pembelajaran atau contoh di pembelajaran tersebut ya yang memang tidak dibolehkan untuk dibawa ke dalam kelas. Contohnya kita mengamati istilahnya teknis bagaimana peluru keluar dari pistol, kan nggak mungkin kan? Nah makanya disimulasikan. Nah hal-hal seperti ini tuh saat itulah butuh simulasi. Tapi kalau masih bisa real life experience dan memang dibolehkan ya kita prioritaskan real life experience.
Do you want to really quickly? And so when you're using games, there are a lot of game developers who have recognized that students like to play their games and made education versions. So in Australia, the Minecraft education version is actually available. The government paid for it for all the government schools. So it's worth looking around for that.
Jadi Minecraft tahu ya? Nah, jadi di Australia itu ada versi edukatifnya. Jadi memang dibiayai oleh pemerintah versi edukatif dari Minecraft ini.
And that That link there is actually to a place in Australia. It's free to get on there. That has a section on video games where teachers have taken a game and planned a lesson around the game. So it's a resource you can look at if you're interested. Yeah.
Nah, ini mungkin bisa ya untuk masa mahasiswa apalagi yang masih proses penelitian ya. Nanti we will post your material to them. Jadi kalian bisa ini ya nanti di link ini itu kalian klik dan ini free ya, free bisa diakses. Nanti kalian bisa pilih game dan kalian bisa mendesain pembelajaran kalian berdasarkan game yang kalian pilih tersebut. Jadi nanti bakal dibagiin ya, mahasiswa bisa cek-cek.
Oh, and I think we'll end with just questions.
Just finish the questions. Yeah.
Is it a short question?
No, we can end now and just talk.
Oke, baik. Let's give round of applause buat tepuk tangan untuk pemateri kita. Luar biasa ya. Banyak sekali new knowledge, bahkan saya sendiri juga baru hal-hal baru yang kita ketahui bersama termasuk untuk saya sendiri begitu ya. Baik Bapak Ibu dan masa mahasiswi, kami persilakan untuk memberikan pertanyaan karena kita sekarang move on nih ke sesi tanya jawab Q&A. Boleh silakan pakai bahasa Indonesia boleh, pakai bahasa Inggris boleh, jangan khawatir akan dibantu translate. Baiknya untuk Bapak Ibu yang di Zoom boleh. Kalau ada yang ditanyakan, baiknya langsung open mic aja, terus open kamera juga.
Raisa?
Tapi kalau misalkan tidak kan, oh yes, we have.
Raisa, boleh Bapak tanya?
Pak, silakan Bapak, time is yours.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning for Amber and Katie. This is Haris.
Hello.
Hello, Amber.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Amber. Amber, what you are talking about is mind-opening presentation, I think. I believe that game-based teaching is not a new topic in the literature, but I have to confess that this topic, game-based teaching, is not explored sufficiently in Indonesia. So what you are talking about is very interesting for us, and that we need to learn more about how to use games in nurturing the students to have their better science conceptual understanding, and then also the mathematical calculation understanding. Maybe because I said this because we are working in the science education program. But Katie, could you tell me how is the game can increase the conceptual understanding of students? The four aspect you are talking about is one of them is the multimodal. I agree that multimodal is one of the factor that using game can increase the conceptual understanding of student. But do you think that psychology, how can student can have better science understanding by using games? Is there any relationship with the challenge that they need to solve during the games? I think that's all from me, Katie and Amber. And I intend to start to make research about game-based teaching in my project in the future. Thank you very much, Katie and Amber.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so maybe just to elaborate a bit more on how games can help with learning. I think that's what you're asking me. I think, as I was saying at the end, that for most students, having a real experience of doing something helps them to learn. Now, in science, often we can't give them the real experience. So, for example, maybe in biology, you can dissect a chicken or something, but that doesn't work with physics or chemistry or, if you're getting into DNA or something, you can't do that. So how can we give students an experience? And, at the moment, we maybe have, just say you're looking at DNA. We have models of DNA that students can touch. We have DNA in books. But we now also can use apps to use augmented reality and so see it in a three-dimensional way and walk around and look at it and click on it. So I suppose it's just a more enriching experience, because if you think about it in terms of the levels, obviously if you have the real experience, that's going to be the most helpful. But then under that, what do we have? We have discussion, we have books. There has to be something in between. And that's, I think, where the games can come in. So, and then you'll see on one of the last slides, I had the Angry Birds picture. Do you all know that game, Angry Birds, that came out a few years ago? So there are lots of physics games where you can fire something and you can change the what are they called? Angles? Yeah, you can change the angle and you can change the strength, and some of them you can even change the gravity. You can change all kinds of things. But imagine if you could do exactly the same thing, but it's Angry Birds. So the students are going to be more engaged, and also they're still learning. So there's that engagement factor, but also for the students, one of the big issues we have when teaching students is they think, why do I need to real life? And if you just have a textbook, sometimes it's difficult to explain, you know, why do I need to learn this sine wave? Like, why is it important? If you can relate it to something in their life outside school, they're more interested in it. So a lot of it is, if I can't have the real experience, maybe I can get it from a computer game, a simulation, something like that. And also helping students to be more motivated because it's fun, and actually they can see how this might relate to something they do outside of class. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amber.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to love the Angry Birds, and I think the next layer on that is the fact that we just can't give the students the game and expect them to learn everything, that we need to then have those really important discussions around, well, if I change this factor, what physics, kind of concept am I teaching here? And so really kind of unpacking it. I think we often make assumptions that if we're playing educational games, that students are getting all of the concepts. So that discussion's really important as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Amber and Dr. Kelly. And thank you so much to Dr. Harris too. Hope it answers your questions. Such a really great question.
Okay, Amber and Katie, see you tomorrow in the program of doctoral program. And we are talking about this topic deeper tomorrow, with the doctoral students. Thank you very much.
Yeah, kind of little bit of spill ya. Pak Haris udah spill tuh. So tomorrow our schedule
kita spill a bit about tomorrow.
We will be visiting doctoral in math and science education program. Bapak Ibu can also join us in Unjat Lanai tomorrow morning. Yeah, we'll be there. Thank you so much, Bapak Dr. Haris. We welcome for another question. Yes, Ibu.
Students to be competitive in trying to answer as fast as possible, and it makes them sometimes very careless in finding the answer.
Yes.
And sometimes they only had a very limited time of thinking before answering, because they were eager answering the question as soon as possible and being the winner. So I guess that's one your students has a limited time to think thoroughly before they answer. But game making them engage. Well, my question is, how long should we use game in a period of learning? Because I think we cannot use the whole time
No.
or a learning session for using games.
Mm.
So because Australia using games, Australian school using games frequently. So how long the teacher usually use games in one session?
Can I address
Yeah.
the first bit you just threw? So can I address your comment about Kahoot? Because I totally agree with you. I don't use Kahoot anymore because I looked at lots of very similar ones. And I thought, okay, what do I want? This is what's so important about your digital literacy. You don't have to use Kahoot. You can use something else. And actually, I use something called Quizlet. Do you know Quizlet? And Quizlet has a live part to it. And it's very similar to Kahoot in that you have to match things. So it's like the start of a sentence and the end of a sentence. But the fantastic thing about it is you do it in groups. So on your computer screen, we're in the same group. Your computer screen has some of the answers. My computer screen has some of the answers. And Rice's computer screen has some of the answers. And we are a group. So we have to talk to each other and say, which one is the correct answer? And then put it in. It's still a competition. There's still a speed element to it because all the teams are competing. But because I have quite good digital literacy, I was thinking in my head, what do I want from this quiz, this game? And then I looked at many different ones and decided, oh, this is the one I want. And I tried it in the class and some of the students liked it, some didn't, but I really liked it. So now I use it all the time. So I think that's really important. You know, if you find this one, it's not working anymore. You know, I don't like it anymore. Then go and look for another one because there's a lot of really good ones.
Mm. And do you want to do that and then? Okay. So in response to how are Australian classrooms using games, there's certainly a whole mix of different approaches. So if we think about a game in terms of it might be a consolidation of learning. So often what you would see is the teacher teaching something explicitly. So this is the content knowledge that you need, and then I'm going to apply that learning through the playing of the game. So you could do it that way. The other way I've seen it being used is that the game kind of sets up that prior knowledge and understanding, that pre-learning. Let's play this game and then we're going to learn the content. So in Australian education, I think what you'll see is a whole mix of different things. So games, for example, might not be as appropriate for literacy, for teaching reading. So we might not use games for that, but we might use them more in mathematics or for history or for science. So again, it's about thinking about what is the game for? Is this the best tool for what I need to teach? And then using it in that way. So either as prior knowledge or consolidation of learning, and you'll see a mix. There's still a lot of explicit instruction because that content knowledge is still really important.
Yeah, and can I just add that we encourage our teachers to present the same point in many different ways. So maybe first I stand up the front and talk about it. Then I get them to do a worksheet. Then they discuss it in groups. Then we watch a video. Then we play a game, all for the same topic. So that's, it can be like that, just one of many. It's not the only. And I just want to emphasize what Kelly was saying before in terms of stopping the game or at least discussing the game, because often students will play a game that you have very carefully chosen and you think, oh, they're learning this from the game. But when you ask them at the end, what did they learn? They say, I got to the top of the tower the fastest, and think that's not what you were learning. So you always have to make it explicit because the students are not going to get it. You have to tell them, this is what you just learned. I always say to my students, what will your students tell their parents when they go home? When their mother says, what did you do at school today? Will they say, we played a game? Or will they say, we learned about angles? So you have to direct them. This is what you're learning.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of a bit tricky, ya, Ibu. Susanna, thank you so much, Ibu, for the questions, it's kind of a bit trickier to think about how long or how much games elements that we are going need to bring up in class.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I think
Oh, yeah,
that's,
sure.
sorry, really true. Certainly in Australia, a lot of teachers think, oh, if I use technology, it's easier. I don't have to work so hard. But actually, it's the opposite. The amount of planning and thought and time you have to take into choosing which technology you're going to use and then ensuring that it actually is teaching what you think it's teaching sometimes takes a lot longer than just doing it the traditional way. So, yeah.
So it's actually more challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bu Sudana, for the question. Hope it answers your questions. And thank you so much for your insightful answers to the questions. We welcome the next question. Yeah. From one of our students. Don't forget to mention your name. Disebutin ya namanya ya.
Thanks for the give me the chance. My name is Cherry. I'm sorry if my English is not better because I'm still learning. Okay. I have two questions about this topic. The first question is about the game. When is better time to apply the game in the class? It's like after students understanding the basic material or when we begin the material in the class. What the better time we use the game? And the second question is, can game change the role of the teacher? It's like, for example, when I learn a foreign language, it's like English, Germany. I learned Germany language too. I use a Duolingo application. It's like I can easily when I use Duolingo, then it's like I hard to understand to learn foreign language in the class. It's like I easy learn with Duolingo, but hard for understanding in the class. It's like this. Can game change the teacher's role in real life? Okay.
Okay, so I'll answer the first one and then I'll pass over to Amber. So there's no easy answer to your question. It depends on what you want to achieve and when. So you need to know your students. You can teach it either way. So you could teach the content and then the game, or you could teach the game and the game, then the content. So it just depends on which way you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way. There's no prescription that this is how you have to do it. It's about you knowing your students and what you want to teach and then deciding. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
And for your second question about the role of the teacher, this is a really big question. And we've been talking about it for many, many, many years. I remember back in 2000, we were talking about teachers being replaced by computers. So that was back in 2000. Now it's 2024 and we still need teachers. So we talk about it a lot, but teachers are still really essential. And in terms of their role, sometimes technology is used to provide the extra help. So for example, with Duolingo, I've used that one too. And it's, if you could have a real person to talk to all day, it would be better than Duolingo. But you don't. So Duolingo is great. So it's a good addition, extra practice. But if you only had Duolingo and you didn't have the teacher, you wouldn't get very far. So it feels like, I know this because I tried to use it to learn Japanese, right? And it took me a long time and I didn't really learn very much. And then when I went to Japan, I really couldn't understand. But the other thing is that technology in general is changing the role of the teacher because they're not always the expert. I can say something to you Now you can get on your phone and you can check it. And maybe you know more than me because you've seen the latest information online. So that's quite difficult for some teachers to handle, is that they're not really the expert anymore. So that does change. So you are becoming more of a mentor, a coach. Of course, you still need to do explicit teaching, but also you're helping students to teach themselves with the technology. So yeah, it's a big, big, big question. And lots of people are talking about exactly that question. So good question.
Okay, Cherry, hope it answers your questions.
Okay, thank you for.
Thank you. Good luck for your journey with Duolingo.
Yeah.
You learn Germany, if I'm not mistaken, yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
I learn English and Germany language.
Okay. All right. So we are going to welcome one more question. One more question from both everyone in Zoom and also from everyone who is attending in person. Satu pertanyaan lagi mungkin Bapak Ibu dipersilakan adik-adik mahasiswa. Ayo yang semester Rio and Friends. The students in the second row, they are currently doing your final project ya, lagi